Good afternoon and warm welcome to this year's Stockholm School of Economics Homecoming Celebration. My name is Jan Artem Henriksson. I'm an SSE alum. I'm the CEO of the Inner Development Goals Initiative that we will talk about later. And I'm happy to be your moderator for the day because we have a lot of interesting speakers, entertainment, and special updates. We're doing this online, but we will get the chance to also meet for a dinner on the 23rd of September at the Stockholm School of Economics. And I really want to encourage you to look for the invitation in your inbox so we can join, at least those of us who can, for but for a physical homecoming. And the reason why we do a digital gathering again is because so many alumni from all around the world really appreciated to be able to join and to reconnect. And one of the ways to do that is find the chat at your right-hand corner, lower corner. And we have people all the way from Ecuador to Vietnam. And please write, where are you tuning in from? And maybe also what year did you study at Stockholm School of Economics? Also, if you look at the bottom of the page, there is a Q&A section. And there you can write your questions. And hopefully we can catch as many as possible of them in the panels or in between with the keynote speakers. So be active and see if you find somebody from your years at the school. And the theme of the day is Rethinking Leadership. It's maybe the theme that is closest of them all to my heart, and this is why I couldn't say no to moderate this event. Because we bring home our leadership to our families. We're affected by it personally, and it affects our professional life and careers. We will get input both on what authentic leadership is or can be and the challenges around that, how we can become more responsible in our leadership, but also how we can meet unexpected turns in this global world and interconnected society that we all live in. But let's start with Friedmans' Apostlar and enjoy their take on Handels' lov.
Festen ska börja, kråset ska smörjas, magen ska få det som den vill ha. Glasen står fulla, låtsången rullar, alla är Handels gäster idag. Glasen till handen, fatt om Gud tåg. Helanden går och magen den får. Sorgerna glömmes, glasen nu tömmes, alla för Handels höjer en skål.
Thank you, Friedmans Apostlar, and we will get another input from you in the program. But now to our first special update, the president of Stockholm School of Economics, Lars Strannegård.
Welcome back to the Stockholm School of Economics. I would have loved to invite you all to the SSE campus, seeing you in person and show you all the fantastic updates and changes to our campus environments. But rest assured, we are making preparations to be able to actually meet in person very, very soon. We now face a new geopolitical landscape with Russia's terrifying, inhumane, illegal, and tragic war on Ukraine. And the happenings in the world right now are almost unthinkable. It is my conviction that knowledge, science, and education are lights that must continue to shine in a world that is now darkening. But this is Homecoming 2022, where we will focus on rethinking leadership. We provide education for the leaders of tomorrow, as we have provided education for the leaders, entrepreneurs, and decision makers of today, all of you. And we have prepared a solid program for today where you will meet our world-class researchers, up and coming entrepreneurs, and we hope our program will be both insightful interesting, and inspiring. And many of you have probably heard me, or others at the school, talk about our educational mission that we abbreviate as FREE, F-R-E-E. This means we prepare our students with a fact and science-based mindset. We create opportunities for reflection and self-awareness, and we strive for a foundation built on empathy, created through cultural literacy, and finally, on an entrepreneurial and responsible mindset. Again, we need to approach the world with curiosity and confidence, and, as the philosopher Ingmar Hedenius said, to be free and alive in relation to the unknown, words that are even more true today than ever before. To accept the fact that the future is constantly changing and largely unknown, while still having the knowledge and confidence to act responsibly, has never been more important. Ellen Key once said that we need to adopt a mindset that goes beyond knowledge, an approach to the world that captures a stance and view that is still there, even if we have forgotten specificities and details that we learned. And this is what our educational mission is all about, to continue to learn and gain knowledge long after you've had your diploma from SSE, to develop an approach to the world that is fact-based, reflective, empathetic, and responsible. And this is partly why I am so looking forward to inviting you to the SSE campus as soon as possible. This is where our latest efforts really show. The SSE campus is expanding. We have recently acquired Studentpalatset, the student palace, on Norrtullsgatan, to be able to house both faculty and provide study places. It's a spectacular building from the 1920s, just like the main building. So we can now take a walk over the park Observatoriekullen, the Observatory Hill. And I would actually like to rename that hill to Handels, the SSE garden, but the city of Stockholm will not approve, I suppose. And we have refurbished many classrooms and study spaces with a focus on a constructive and inspiring learning environment, coupled with digital pedagogical tools, and taken great care to incorporate art customized for each location. Right now, we're also working hard to refurbish our main meeting hub, the atrium, and the aula at the heart of our main building. This is part of our main goal to present a business school for all senses. We are extending the Stockholm School of Economics experience, both intellectually, physically, and emotionally. And we strongly believe in the physical space, the soul of our campus, if you will, where courses, meeting places, networking, art talks, tech labs, and sports all contribute to real multifaceted knowledge. So the SSE campus needs to be a meeting place that you basically do not want to leave. But when you do, you're equipped to inspire, lead, and cooperate to take on the challenges of our uncertain future. And you should always feel that you are warmly welcome back. So when we now dive into today's program titled Rethinking Leadership, I'm hoping we can play a part in thinking and rethinking, to re-evaluate and take great pride in our will to never stop expanding our knowledge. This is really our duty for the future. So once again, a warm welcome.
Thank you, Lars, for your wise reflections and being brave in both opening new spaces for us to meet, but also philosophically rethink leadership. And now to our first keynote speaker, and it's Professor Laurence Romani, who will help us think about responsible leadership and rethinking business as usual. I'm really happy to have you here. Welcome, Laurence.
For some time now, I have followed managers who do recruitment. I've not followed just random managers. I follow managers who believe that they can make a sustainable change in society with their action, with their business. And especially those that I follow want to reduce social inequality. I would say that they are inspired by a framework that you could call responsible leadership. And this is not just business as usual. They really rethink, they have to rethink leadership to do this. And I would like to share that with you. But first of all, what is responsible leadership? Many of you have probably heard the term from sustainable development goals and having actions and making decisions that are good for the planet. I think it's a lot more than that. It's also everyday action and how you engage differently with the person that matter for the action that you're taking and those who will be influenced and have the impact of your decisions. So basically, the idea is that when you're responsible leadership, or what is expected of responsible leadership, is that you understand you are co-responsible for solving and addressing the pressing problems we have in society and in politics, in economics, in the planet. And this is done by going beyond this diet of leader and follower. So for example, in transformational leadership or in authentic leadership, you're very much considering, or in charismatic leadership even, considering the leader and the immediate followers. In responsible leadership, you broaden this to multiple circles of stakeholders. The second aspect is precisely those circles of stakeholders, and showing that they are multiple and you create value with them, not from your inner strength, like with an authentic leadership, but from this relationship with them. So what does it mean in practice? Let me give you an example. Imagine the following. You are the head of a department, and then you have to recruit a new specialist. And this specialist will be at the head of maintenance of an electrical network. So that is your electrical network. It's mostly composed of high voltage lines. You have CVs coming in after the application the ad was diffused. And then in particular, you have two very interesting CVs. On the one hand, you have the CV from Samir. From what you can read on that page, you see that Samir left Syria pretty much at the beginning of the war, came to Sweden quickly, and after about 6 months, he started studying at the most prestigious technical university, KTH, here in Stockholm. 6 years later, he graduated not with one, but two of the most prestigious degrees from that school. And that's a very impressive CV, right? And then you look at, okay, what is his experience? And it doesn't have the experience you're looking for. Yes, it is in the network, electrical network maintenance, but it's mostly cable. Okay. Next to that, you have another CV, and that's a CV from Johan. And Johan, from what you can see, grew up pretty much around Stockholm, also studied at KTH, great, also has one degree from this university. And you look at his experience, and here you are. You have a couple of years of more of experience of electrical network maintenance, and this is with high voltage line. And most people stop there. Most managers think, okay, I have my candidate. I have the perfect education and perfect experience. But the managers I'm following, they rethink, they go beyond that. And they start thinking, what is it that they need? What kind of value creation they will do right now, but also with multiple stakeholders and multiple time horizons. So if they start with the team, they will say, okay, Johan already knows the work, so he can start tomorrow, and my team will not have to spend time, bringing him up to speed. So that's great, perfect candidate for right now and for my team. That's your first circle of stakeholder. And then what I hear them doing is that they consider the department. So in terms of department, that's true. If my team performs well now, I continue the performance and we're doing well. However, when they extend the time horizon, they consider that, cable, we don't have much cable right now in our network, but this is something that will be increasingly important. So today is not essential, but tomorrow it would be good to have some expertise and experience with cables. And then they go one step further. They consider the organization. Okay, if I'm thinking of recruiting someone for the organization, this person will work in my department probably some time and then move to another department. So who could have this profile of being flexible, adaptive, learning, and that could contribute to different departments? And then they go one more step. They think of society. Remember, those managers, they care about social inequality in society. And they say, how come Samir doesn't have the right experience? In the sense, how come Samir, the best student in the sense, like 2 degrees, comes out clearly a very strong candidate? How come he was not interested, or we didn't know about going in high voltage lines? And what they are saying is that, look, this is a pattern we recognize from society. My person with a migration background, highly educated, they are underemployed. They are not where they should be right now. And those managers, so basically, this is what they've been doing, considering the multiple circles of stakeholders and where they're doing the value creation. And they consider today, tomorrow, they consider their team, the organization, society. And they do one more thing. They stand for what they believe in. So when their colleague will say, well, but shouldn't we invite Yuan? Because Yuan clearly has the merit, he has the education and the experience. They say, wait a second, how do we define merit? What is merit? Because if merit is about doing the job right now, today, and doing it well, yes, we invite Yuan. But if the merit is about value creation for our team, for the organization, for society in general, and if having people who are employed or talents that are fully recognized to their full potential in society, it's merit, then we have someone in the name of Samir who could definitely be someone to consider for this position. So to sum up, what do those leaders do? They consider multiple circles of stakeholders, and they consider the value they can create in view of those multiple stakeholders. And they consider different time horizon, not just today, what the performance report they have to deliver next month or in 6 months. They considering longer time frame. And this together is not business as usual. They really have to argue for thinking differently. And there I can hear how they have the tools and the vocabulary to argue by telling their colleagues, no, let's think again. Wait a minute. Let's define what merit is about. So this I find inspiring, and I'm not the only one. When I meet students in the school, and we share ideas of what kind of leaders they want to become, many of them find inspiration in these responsible leaders because they identify themselves also as solution or co-responsible for finding the solution to the pressing problems we have. So they know that continuing business as usual, the way we've been doing, this is not going to solve the grand challenge that we are facing. And they clearly invite us to rethink the leadership that we've been teaching in the school, and they push us to become those responsible citizens, as being the leaders.
Thank you, Laurence, so much for a beautiful talk that sparked a lot of thoughts in myself and in some of the listeners. One question, if okay, that came up. Yeah. So the culture that we're in as leaders, it can help us maybe to be more responsible or stop us, or what is your take on how much does the culture matter?
I think the culture matters a lot in the sense of giving a framework of what is possible, what is expectable of people to do. So if you have an organization which has as corporate value courage, I think this gives a lot of possibility for leaders to say, wait a minute, let's rethink this. Let's take a chance, or let's think differently. And so therefore, culture of an organization really matters. And also the leaders of organization, by really showing the way forward and what they want, what they are inspired, what they can inspire people to do. That also matters, I would say.
Thank you. I recognize that a lot. We will dive deeper into the research that you presented in a panel, but thank you for now. And we will continue. We will continue with some music performance, and this time it's the SASSE Music Society, and it's their instrumental take on Isn't She Lovely? Thank you, SASSE Music Society, and that was indeed lovely. So our next speaker will be Julia Delin, the CEO of SSE Business Lab, where I actually spent some time together with Philip Jonsson Jarl and Relate that has later taken off. So I'm really curious to hear what has happened in the last year, some updates, and Julia will also present some of the company pitches that will be presenting their companies. Julia, warm welcome.
Thank you, Jan. So, hi everyone, my name is Julia Delin and I am the CEO of the SSE Business Lab. The SSE Business Lab is the venture incubator of the Stockholm School of Economics, and just like the school we belong to, we work to strengthen Sweden's competitiveness, and we do so by providing a platform for growth to exceptional entrepreneurs. But what does that mean? Well, we help ideas go from inspiration and initial idea to scaling internationally, and we do this through 3 different programs, and I'm going to tell you shortly about them. The first program is called Ideate, and here we gather students who have a passion to address global challenges through entrepreneurship. During 10 weeks, we have 30 students from SSE and KTH build teams and find problems that they believe are worth solving and get to a stage where they can start building. In our Activate program, we gather teams who want to build their first prototype in a fast-paced environment with coaching, workshops, and pitch training every week for 8 weeks. And this program is actually perfect for alumni because you get to test your idea while you're still working, because all activities are held either during lunchtime or after working hours. And this is a perfect place to start. Our last program is called the Incubate program, and here we gather teams who already have a prototype, who have tested it and gained some traction and are ready to start working towards scaling internationally. And here you should have at least 1 team member who are ready to work full-time as an entrepreneur. And if you are admitted to the Incubate program, we give you all the support that you need to grow your startup. And that includes coaching, mentors, investors, partners, office space, and of course we try to give you everything that we got. And we do this for up to 18 months. And these past months have actually been incredible for us because we have grown so much in terms of our team. When I started in 2018, I was the single employee at the Business Lab, and nowadays we are 7 employees working towards building and helping our startups grow through partnerships and programs. And beyond this team, of course, we have alumni and friends who support us in different ways. For example, we had 14 coaches helping our startups during their entire time with us last year. And these were people like Linnea Kornhed from Einride and Björn Öster from Oatly. And during the last year, we also met with 101 new ideas, and we admitted 27 of these to our programs. And this year, we're aiming a lot higher, of course, with 35 companies as our goal. So if you look towards the entrepreneurs who came before us and want to create an impact in the world through entrepreneurship, I really, really encourage you to get in touch with us to hear how we can support you in your company's growth. We do this, of course, because we love to support our alumni, and we want to help the ones who are building the future companies and who will solve the global challenges. And the next deadline to keep in mind is May 15th for both the Activate and Incubate programs. So get in touch with us before that so we can schedule a meeting. I'd also like to take this opportunity to, of course, extend my gratitude and tell you that we would be nothing without the great support from alumni and friends who support us by helping to coach, mentor, and support our companies pro bono. And you can also get involved if you're interested. If you can and want to donate your time and effort, you can coach or mentor our startups. If you're interested in engaging in investing in startups, you could do that as well. And we're actually about to launch a project that, if you're interested in investing in startups, you cannot miss. Our investors get exclusive access to companies like Budbee, Voi, and Klarna. And of course, these are companies that you don't want to miss. Let's see who the next ones are. Perhaps the ones that you'll hear soon. My email can be found at ssebl.com/Julia, so get in touch with me today. I really hope that my inbox is filled to the brim when I get home tonight. That's my goal. Okay, so now it's my pleasure to introduce you these 3 startups that will pitch for you today. All of these companies are a part of our Incubate program, and I will introduce them to you separately so that you'll understand where they are. First out is Louise Kronenborg-Jones. She is an alumna of the SSE MBA program, and with her company, Water Insight, she is a part of our Incubate program. Please welcome Louise.
Thank you, Julia. At Water Insight, we help governments build resilience to climate change and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. With our innovation, government staff use their phones to collect and digitize measurements on water and weather. Across countries, there are thousands of devices installed for measurements, such as this gauge plate that measures the depth of a river. And the data point is traditionally recorded on paper. But with our solution, the person taking the measurement can send it with an SMS to our database, where it is instantly available and visualized. Our clients are governments in low-income countries. And because our technology is so highly scalable, they benefit from instant access and better data. And this is critical in things like forecasting, managing water, or issuing a flood warning. My name is Louise Kronenborg-Jones, and I spent a decade working for the World Bank in Africa. This gave me deep insights into water and climate challenges. But I kept seeing opportunities for mobile technology to transform piles of data such as this into a digital resource. And I finished the SSE Executive MBA. I knew that I had the tools to start Water Insight. The data gap on water and weather is huge. In Africa alone, only 26% of on-the-ground observations are collected. At the same time, improved information can help reduce the losses from related disasters by $66 billion. Investing in this sector is believed to have a 1-to-7 cost-benefit ratio. Our market is primarily funded by multilateral banks and donors, and they have a current portfolio for this sector in the order of $3 billion, which will grow 150% by 2030. With these funds, government agencies publicly procure solutions to ramp up climate monitoring. And our segment of the market is estimated at $600 million a year with a 6% growth rate. Our prototype is already in operation in Malawi. And next, we want to pilot in other countries in Africa and Asia. We want to take product to market and scale. To do this, I have a truly incredible team. And if what we do resonates with you, we welcome your support and your guidance. Now, you will hear what our users in Malawi think of our innovation.
Understanding water and climate change depends on the collection of measurements. That is why we make it easy for gauge readers to send observations online using their phone, regardless if it is a smartphone or not.
Overall, ili bwino, and it will help our department kwambiri. Nthawi zambiri titakhaza kuti tikutenga data ngati kuma office kwathu kuti magwiritsa ntchito ngati manyo, of which zambiri zimakhala zone kuti it prone kuti zikhoza kutayika, sitingathe mwina pena pake kuti tiyiseve bwinobwino, zimakhala zovuta. So
kandi information yathu iyi kwatoka imene matumiza ku head office chinthu yambira imenecho koma panopo zikuthandiza kuti tiliso ndi enanso amene akufunanso information yomweyi. Chachiwiri tiona kuti Kalonga Airport isuntha ngasi ambiri adziwa kuti malo awa akulandira mvula motero ndi kwathu kuno Kalonga timaliralira nkhani yoti kuli ma disaster chifukwa cha mvula.
Across Malawi, daily measurements of river and rainfall levels are now instantly digitized with our solution, much thanks to a great collaboration with users and government staff.
Ndiya changu komanso ndiyo savuta weni komanso ndi system yonena kuti ili simple kwa basi mwachimwe tikozongonera choncho.
At Water Insight, we focus on simplicity and reliability, and we want to scale quickly to support impact across water, floods, and resilience.
Thank you, Louise from Water Insight. Next up, we have Lamin Darbo, who is an alum from the SSE Master's Program, who will present to you his company, which he is co-founder of, called Bantaba. Welcome, Lamin.
Thank you, Julia. Do you know that Africa has the highest entrepreneurship rate in the world? Yes, 22% of working-age population are starting new businesses. These entrepreneurs are leveraging technology to address some of the most pressing challenges that the continent faces. But yet, 70% of them lack access to knowledge and capital to grow their businesses. This is the problem that Bantaba is solving by using Africa's most important external resources, its people living abroad, like myself and my co-founders. We are collectively called the diaspora, a community of 140 million people, mostly highly educated. Bantaba is enabling African startups to access knowledge and capital from the diaspora. On our platform, startups can connect with diaspora investors or be merged with diaspora experts. The diaspora, on the other hand, gets an opportunity to participate in Africa's growth. The time is now. African countries are among the highest growing in the world, and the diaspora is eager to engage. 35% of them want to invest in a startup. The market opportunity here is huge. According to the World Bank, the diaspora saves $53 billion annually in their resident countries. And our business model around this is simple. Startups pay a listing fee of $100 and 5% on the amount of capital raised. As we scale, we will be able to implement new revenue streams. We differentiate ourselves from other players in the market by building a strong community around our product and also offering startups access to both knowledge and capital. Furthermore, we are exclusively focused on the diaspora and harnessing the power of a willing crowd. We are diaspora ourselves, and some of us have previously founded ventures in Africa. So we have a good understanding of the problem we are addressing. And we are proud to have attracted an experienced team of advisors. In the 9 months since the launch of our beta product, we have closed a pre-seed round. We have onboarded over 180 African tech startups on our platform and more than 400 diaspora investors and experts. We have also closed strategic partnerships with several key institutions. With a strong foundation in place, we are now positioned to become the link between global capital and Africa's startup ecosystem, starting with the diaspora. Africa is truly rising. This is an opportunity to be part of that future. Join us.
Thank you so much, Lamin. It's really exciting that we have more companies than perhaps usual on this stage working towards the African continent and solving problems. Now we have another one of our incubate companies pitching, the last one. And Ulrike Michael is the co-founder of Circulate. Please welcome Ulrike.
Hi, I'm Ulrike Michael, co-founder and operational lead of Circulate, a smooth digital sourcing platform in a B2B marketplace. Normally, our founder and CEO Carolina, former SSE student, would be standing here, but she is at a wedding up north. In Europe alone, we consume 3 times more resources than the planet can generate. One of the major culprits is packaging. We need to cut our consumption and we need to consume more efficiently. But what is taking so long? We really need to rethink packaging. Through working in the industry and also by interviewing buyers and suppliers, we found that the current process to find, compare, and implement better packaging is time-consuming, complex, and lacks transparency. This is due to a lot of market failures. On the one side, we have the SMEs who actually fail to buy and find packaging solutions because they lack knowledge and engagement, and they are really needing more guidance. On the other side, we have traditional packaging producers, but they have traditional, very expensive sales models in place, and they don't give the guidance the buyers actually need. There are sustainable, innovative packaging producers out there, but they don't have the resources to grow due to lack of commercialization and also a low product range. Let me introduce you to Circulate, a smooth digital sourcing platform in the B2B marketplace for sustainable packaging. We are simplifying the purchasing process for sustainable packaging and digitalizing the interaction between the buyers and the vendors. The green packaging market is huge, and it's growing rapidly. Some of the driving factors are increased awareness and concern for packaging waste, digitalization, but then also new laws and regulations, forcing companies to switch to better packaging solutions. Through our platforms, the vendors, they get high scalable sales channels and also access to new markets and clients by providing insights and analytics so that they actually can grow their business sustainably. The buyers, they get the guidance they need to find other alternatives. They get the sustainability knowledge and also the access to actually compare different possible solutions. We launched our platform in May last year. In just the past months, we have seen an increased amount of buyer requests. So we are looking very motivated to the future. On the supply side, we have built a strong network of sustainable packaging producers, traditional ones, but also the innovative ones I just talked about. And we have a really strong sales pipeline. Our team is international and diverse, and we combine winning expertise from the buy and the supply side, as well as have the technical and the commercialization in place. We're really lucky to have so many amazing advisors and investors who provide hands-on support, but also their expertise and knowledge. We are currently closing our seed round. We are recruiting across all areas, and we are always open for new contacts in the supply and the buy side. So if this resonates with you, get in touch.
Thank you, Ulrike, and thank you to all the startups that pitched. I hope that this gave you some insights into the work that we do at the Business Lab, but also that you got some insights into the trends that we are seeing today with the startups. If you feel like you want more updates like these, not just once a year, please get in touch because we can help you with that. So thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you for creating a culture where entrepreneurs can grow and experiment.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. So we will move on and talk about rethinking leadership, and even more on a global level. And I want to start on a personal note because next speaker will be speaking about the inner development goals. And I'm from Ukraine originally. And this last months have been one of my most painful and challenging, having family and brothers still in Ukraine and seeing what failure of leadership failure of leaders' capacities to relate, to collaborate, to solve complex issues and problems, what it results to. And it's not only in Ukraine. I think, unfortunately, we see this globally. We see this in many countries, in many organizations, where the capacities that we lack create a lot of suffering. And with this question, we created the inner development goals. We asked, how would leaders need to grow individually and collectively in our cultures in order for us to increase our chances of reaching the sustainable development goals facing the complex issues at hand? And in the chat, you will find a link to the framework, the Inner Development Goals framework, which has 5 categories and 23 skills. It's co-created by more than 1,000 people from universities in Sweden and globally. It's an open source, non-for-profit initiative that wants to reflect and wants to invite you to reflect on what skills do you think are most needed. And this is what Emma Stenström will be speaking about, professor at Stockholm School of Economics. Welcome.
How can we become better at handling the many global challenges we are facing today? How can we reach those global goals for sustainable development? With those questions in mind, we at Stockholm School of Economics, together with many partners from academia and elsewhere, have started this project we call the Inner Development Goals, trying to identify the most crucial transformational skills and qualities we need in order to reach those sustainable development goals. So far, we've identified 23 of them. So, for example, just one example, perspective skills. How can we become better at seeing problems from different perspectives, understanding different perspectives? What do we need to do to develop those skills in ourselves and in others? Now, you might think this sounds a bit fluffy or common sense. You might also wonder, when will I have time to do this? Or you might ask, how do you do it? How do you develop those skills in yourselves and others throughout life as a lifelong journey? I would like to invite you to come and co-create with us. How do we do it together? How can we best develop those skills so that we will be better at handling the many global challenges we are seeing today, and so that we can reach the global goals for sustainable development? Come join us.
Thank you, Emma, for that invitation, and we'll take up and do a co-creation around that. I mean, I hope you have the possibility to look at some of the skills or hear Emma reflect. And I will now ask you a question and see if we can co-create and reflect on what do you think is most important for yourself or others to develop to better meet complex challenges. You have the link in the chat to Menti, or you can scan the QR code with your phone. And you can answer one or several skills. And we will see as this world cloud emerges, what are some of the skills you think are most important. But also see if you can get some inspiration from fellow alumni and also from the framework. And one of the skills, at least for me, that has been very core for many years is mentioned by Laurence in the beginning. It's inner compass, knowing your values, being able to live a life led by values. And this is important not only to handle complex challenges and recover from stress, but also in order to collaborate better with people who have different values. Because if you can look at what is important for yourself and take it as an object, you won't find people who think differently, different values, different worldviews as strange or threatening, and you might try to understand and relate in a wiser way. So there are many different things we could do, and let's see if we can get the word cloud up, if there are some input regarding what you think is important. And empathy is one of those, which is empathy and compassion, a very important skill and something we actually can build. We can evolve all of these skills, and sometimes even by taking a lunch with somebody with the opposite views from yourself, politically or in other ways, and really try to understand them deeper. I know that Emma does a lot of those exercises called bubble hopping, and we can see this growing, and this is a co-creation. This model is co-created by many people, and you will get information after the event on how you can join and co-create with us further at the IDG Summit. But now we have our next keynote speaker, and it's SSE Assistant Professor Katja Einola that will be talking about one of these 23 IDG skills, authenticity, and some of the challenges in being authentic. Warm welcome, Katja.
I'd like to invite you to rethink authentic leadership, which I think is a trap for 3 specific reasons. One is that it's very hard to be against being authentic, like being fake or inauthentic. And second, well, oftentimes when at work situations we are our true selves, people don't like us or it's not possible because of our roles. And the third reason is because when we in a leader role are authentic and lead in that type of way, we force the others to follow our authenticity, which is basically making them into clones, which is then immoral. So here in the picture, we have a leadership challenge. We have put this plastic into the ocean. There's a lot of plastic even in the Mariana Trench, 11 kilometers underneath water, below the surface of water. So the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal number 14, by the UN is life below water. This is to conserve and sustainably use the ocean, seas, and marine resources. This is the goal that's very far from being reached. I think last time I checked, below 6%, the KPI of that goal was reached, which is very little. So humans seem to create more leadership problems than they solve. There is a movie called My Octopus Teacher, which earned the Oscar for Best Documentary a couple of years back. It's by the naturalist Greg Foster. Now, according to his self-accounts, what he talks about it, he was kind of a man in search of a meaning, which is what propels him to do this documentary. So this, to me, represents a switch of thinking, how we can change to understand differently, meaning reframe the reality we live in. So here, if you watch or have watched this documentary, you see that the octopus becomes the teacher. So here we have a switch of frame that I find interesting. So something similar is needed in how we understand leadership and change in general. So there's a problem with logic we have. So if you look at everything as a resource or a machine that is broken and that needs human fixing to be further used, then other complementary ways of viewing the world, like chopping it into different KPIs or performance goals, is kind of lagging. There's no space for any other rationality or way of thinking. So I worry that we are missing something very important. Like, is our mindset off? So is this bizarre obsession with measuring everything? Can we question that? So here, the octopus teaches the documentary more than any stats, at least to me, of pollution or any horrific pictures of bleached corals. It teaches more because it teaches me to see things differently. It invites me to reflection, to understand life differently. I switched from from business to academia 2011. So I had also the ambition to answer this type of business problems, like how can I make my teams work more effectively? So how I can take my resources and turn them into better outputs. But after a while, I stopped doing that because simple answers to complex problems, they are very hard to find. So it's kind of an exercise between naivete and narcissism, if we look at things in such simple ways. So I think a better quest is the quest for knowledge. Where do we find knowledge? Well, academia, where academic people belong, as they like to say it, is a place that was founded by Plato. Plato founded the first academy, which was a grove for wise people to relax and talk about things and have debates. I think the Platonic academy would advise us to stay away from leadership as an academic exercise for two key reasons. Like, what else can there possibly be left to say? There are so many versions since that great man theory, whereby the tall Anglo-Saxon man with the strong jaw was judged to be the best leader. So there are theories, biographies, courses, and consulting concepts that just keep on piling up. There's no falsification, meaning in science, usually an old theory gets replaced by a new theory. But in leadership, we just have this piling up, and it's becoming very confusing. So the other problem with this leadership scholarship is, in my view, is that it is seen only or mainly as a thing, an object to be measured. It's again the measurement obsession. So it's pretending that everything like leadership works with the same laws as nature does, which most of us by now know it doesn't. So to me, leadership was like a talk around a campfire. There we can talk about all kinds of leadership, transactional, transitional, ethical, spiritual, authentic, whatever, and be happy about it, not try to prove anything that it's not. So campfire storytelling are fine, but different from hard science. So there's a lot of ideology and pretense of knowledge involved. So a warning is in order. And to me, that warning applies to authentic leadership, because as a scholar, you need to pick your topic. You can't attack everything or consider everything at the same time. So a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, me and Mats Alvesson, we won the Article of the Year award for this piece from Leadership Quarterly. It considers authentic leadership theory as a trap and not being academically serious. So the problem is here that leadership theories do not lead but follow the times. And they are marketed to audiences or wannabe leaders in different ways. So here the trigger was the financial crisis in 2007. And there by Bill George, CEO, he published a book on True North, how to be your true self and authentic leader. So here this big buzz and fuss about this authentic leadership theory. So the academics are part of this very much, this consultancy business. So I call this a trap, because academically speaking, like as a researcher, here, for instance, philosophy is used as a soundbite. They talk about existentialism and philosophy, but it just doesn't go deep into that. There are shaky theoretical foundations, and there are nonsensical measurement tools that don't hold. That's a problem. So leadership, as authentic leadership, is a slippery concept, to say the least. So it's easy to say what's an authentic champagne or genuine leather or a Picasso, or we can easily tell a real duck from a fake one. But then this True North book, it's written by a business leader. It's not an academic book, it's not theory. And then we have Seligman, who also wrote about authentic happiness, but it's about psychology and not leadership. So we have issues. Here we have a bunch of leaders, but do we know which one is authentic and why? Can we tell, or does it even matter? What we know is their actions, it's the legacy they leave behind. That is what matters. So if they're authentic or not, I don't think it's that important. So here we have some genuine authentic people. For instance, Moses, he led the chosen people to the promised land, and everybody was aligned. That's a good case for authenticity. But next to him, we see this person who is black, who may struggle with being authentic in his work life. Also, we have an authentic sales manager, perhaps the one who pushes those plastic bottles, which is debatable. So in French philosophy, existentialism, Sartre and the others were saying that human beings, we have to do something with what they made to us. So it's our responsibility to move on and not turn everything into a t-shirt. So I think to solve this problem of oceans, being authentic, measuring it, and focusing on psychology only, especially positive psychology, doesn't work. We have to think differently. I have no answers, I don't know how to do it, but I have a clue here. For me, at least, it's important to be cultivated, to read across fields, biology, philosophy, astronomy, anything, literature, to know about history, to solve that problem with Ukraine, for instance. It doesn't suffice to understand psychology. We have a person here, I don't know who he is. It could be you, it could be me. Maybe a leader, maybe not, but it doesn't really matter. Maybe he's contemplating on water, wondering, how can I use who I am to make others follow me and be like me because I know best? I hope he's not doing that. He could be asking, who am I? What on earth am I doing here? And why? Moral considerations. Because I think when we allow ourselves to think we are authentic, we need to allow that authenticity to others as well. And that's a starting point. So authenticity is a way to open up for diversity, to be tolerant of different thinking. This is again the kelp forest where the octopus lives. It's also an oxygen production facility. And I like to keep on breathing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katja, for that critical thinking and inspiration to view it from other sides. And we will reflect deeper, all together of us, also with Laurence, just in a moment, and have a panel. But before that, some more music. And we will have Friedmans Apostlar perform all-time SSE favorite Snapsvisemedley. So I really hope that this evokes some good old memories for you.
Helan går, sjung hopp, faderallallalej. Helan går, sjung hopp, faderallalej. Och den som inte helan tar, han heller inte halvan får. Helan går. Jag vill börja gaska, var fan är min flaska? Vem i helvete stal min butelj? Ska törsten klinga till börja svinga? Nej för fan, bara blunda och säg. Transpirationen viktig, det är kroppen när Bacchus spelar på gitarren, Satan spelar på sin handklaver. Alla gärna dansar tango, säg vad kan man väl önska sig mer? Jo, mera brännvin i glasen, mera glas på vår bord, mera bord kalasen, mer kalas på vår jord. Jag minns än idag hur min fader kom hem ifrån staden så gladen och
So here we are, back together, all of us. And we will reflect on some of the questions that we got from the audience or that arose and see if we can have a dialogue on these issues. And I want to start with you, Laurence. You spoke about being responsible, and of course, many of us, we want to be more responsible. We maybe even want our organizations or leaders or cultures to encourage that, but how do we build these skills? How do we go about becoming more responsible?
I think it's a difficult question, and I think it goes beyond skills. So again, if we consider responsible leadership, we have to broaden our circle of who are we thinking about and who do we think we impact. So think about the stakeholders and broaden the circle of stakeholders, and then consider what is the value you're creating there. And then sure, it's depending on people and the kind of skills, whether they are empathetic or whether they can relate to other, but it's also a question of organizational practices and procedures. So if you have very narrow views on recruitment, for example, it will be hard to have this very responsible recruitment process. But if the organization allows you to change recruitment processes, as an example again, that should make an easier time for you. So it's both the organization, was it in place, and the individuals.
And is there structures that we can put in place, like mapping the stakeholders or seeing who do we see as stakeholders, who do we not see, or like can we build that into the culture or structure of our organizations?
Absolutely, absolutely. Exactly as you said, being clear on identifying who are your stakeholders in the different time horizons as well, and then giving the possibility for your employees to address these distant stakeholders and time horizon.
Katja, and I like this. I mean, you talked about it being a trap, but it's what we can see that is real, and what there are concepts that are less real. And I would like to get you to talk a little bit more on that trap. Like if authenticity or thinking about ourselves, trying to be authentic can be a trap, what can we do to get out of it, and how do you relate to responsibility and acting responsibly as a leader? Because you mentioned that a bit also.
Yeah, I think a lot has to do with our Western culture. Western culture is now a lot in the news as well, as opposed to there's different logic in let's say in Russia or China, and these powers are rising. So we have to get out of this me thinking. It's a lot about it's about what we published in social media. It's about look what I look without makeup, amazing. The people want to publicize how authentic they are. That's exactly going against the true authenticity. So it should be more even inclusive of other cultures. Like Laurence sent me an academic article to be reviewed about Ubuntu. Authenticity, like what does authenticity mean in African culture where the collectivity comes first? That's a big mind exercise for us, because it's very hard to share or give or change our views. It's not about me as a leader. There's a cult of a leader in our culture, and I'm part of that cult because I work in a top business school and I have published on leadership, but I realize it more and more. It's a kind of cult of some sort that we have to be careful with narcissism.
And I mean, we see this in yoga studios, right? Like the most authentic people are the most aware almost in how they look. It's so, this narcissism that there is emphasis on authenticity, and at the same time, sometimes those who emphasize that most are the least authentic. So that's maybe also a trap of this Western world that is so individualized, right? Or how do you view it, Laurence?
I don't know whether it's a trap of the Western world. Maybe it's a trend in society that we've been following and without reflecting too much. So
yeah, and Dan Siegel is one of my role models in Never Leadership, and he just published a book on intraconnectedness, and where he says when people focus on developing themselves too much in a Western culture, like even meditation, if you focus on meditation in order to gain peace of mind, and that's your only goal, you just become more narcissistic. You become less empathic and you care less about people around you, which is the opposite of what it's intended to do. And how incredibly dangerous that is. And I want to go also a little bit back to what you said, that creating clones. Like if a leader tries to be too authentic and show their values, that it can also stop others from being authentic. Could you develop that a bit?
Yeah, I think I worked a very long time in a business, so I just think this. I don't know the the cloning of others. I just think you have to have the. I'm working for an engineering company. You look for sequential and logic, and if you look into this theory, there's no logic when you start thinking about it, that what makes me entitled to authenticity if it's this way and not others. So then it's anti-diversity thinking that's implicit, and this is one reason why this theory as a theory doesn't stick. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't work on who we really are and have those exercises, but that's very different from in business. You have to lead others, you have goals to pursue, and that's very different. So you cannot marry leaders with all kinds of amazing works like charisma, transformation, ethicality, morality, compassion, and then always there's a leadership. To me, it's not serious thinking.
And I'd love, because Laurence, you spoke about beyond leader and follower, focusing more on the relationships. What do you think, how do we do that in practice? Like, how do we live that?
I think so, being open toward the other. Is that what you're saying? Or identifying the stakeholders? Could you refine your question?
Yeah, because in leadership, there are all these abstract terms that and this is what you're pointing to also. And in your speech, you said that it can be good to work with multiple stakeholders and to go beyond this leader-follower concepts. And for me, the association goes to transformative leadership and to all these ideals in how leaders can engage broader audiences. And I guess my question is like, again, on the how do we do that? What does it really mean to go beyond leadership and followership?
I think the first thing it means is that you need to consider a broader, again, circle of person and stakeholder that you're considering. Most of the time when we're thinking of charismatic leadership or transformative leadership, we consider who we're going to influence right now in our team, in our department. And then we do not consider what goes beyond this in the future, in society, in the organization, in the other organization that we're working with. So how do we do that? I think, as you said before, becoming very aware of what are the short-term, long-term consequences of the decision we're making now. What does it mean at a broader scale? Can we scale up this kind of decision, and is it sustainable? So to me, how you do that, very much by becoming aware of the consequence of your actions, and that is by, as Katja was saying, by knowing more, by not being too focused and too narrow into one discipline, and by understanding the complexity of the problems we're facing. These are wicked problems, and it is not just one discipline that can solve them.
And Katja, you spoke about this quest for knowledge, and you showed many different disciplines. Should we read more different books? So what is your reflection on rethinking leadership again and focusing more, as you suggest, on knowledge? What could that be?
I think after a couple of years in academia, when I quit my normal job and started becoming a researcher, that's what was realization, because I read so many articles on leadership and team and all that, and I kind of know that. There's nothing really new thinking here. What I started getting something is when I'm into the sociology, philosophy, just history, just pulling together, talking to different people, and accepting in a kind of more humble way that I don't have answers. And I hate it when people come to me who still work in executive jobs or something that can tell me you are an academic, how to fix this. I don't know. And that's all I have to say. And the more I know, the more I know this is the case.
And Laurence, isn't that like the necessary consequence of increasing your circle of care and having multiple stakeholders, that you become humble, that you realize like, oh my God, I know so little and I see it from this one perspective and there's so many others
I mean, obviously, yes, it's one of the consequences, and therefore even more important to relate to the other, so the other discipline, the other way of thinking. And I was very happy to see empathy at the key, at the center of the mapping, because empathy is very much in this relation to the other. You really have to connect to another person, another point of view, and feeling from this perspective. And I think that indeed is a very important value. And empathy, in the sense that you will understand the problems from different perspectives and see what can be your contribution to solving them.
Yeah. And of course, that takes effort, because it's emotionally also challenging to take somebody else's perspective fully. This is, of course, why we not always do this. You also spoke about standing up for yourself as an example. I mean, and it's a tension here between being courageous, saying that this is what I believe in, and engaging with multiple stakeholders and viewing the whole system. How do we balance that as leaders?
I'm not sure so much about standing up for yourself. I think it's standing up for what you believe in and what you think that has to be done. Continuing business as usual and overconsumptions and everything that we know it's not sustainable. Somehow it's not a problem to stand up for sustainable behavior. It's more standing up for change, which is going to be the difficulty. Yeah.
So here, what I hear you say, at least, is that it's, in my language, identifying values, what ideals, how you want to be, and maybe what you're pointing to also, Katja, in saying we need to be moral. We shouldn't focus on being authentic, because that can be corrupted, but we should focus, what do you mean when you say being moral?
Have the consideration over the other as well, because often when we are at work, well, it's not morality that drives people's motivations. That's kind of, we all know that. I don't know, there are many scandals ongoing. We should talk more about morality. Of course, it's very tricky because there's no black and white answers, but that's why we have to face it. There's also different worldviews in different parts of the world. So if you want to tackle the world, then we need to tackle this issue that morality here is something else than perhaps there. And with Laurence here, I don't know, I just think this, I'm new. I'm Finnish-Canadian, both Finnish and Canadian. And when I've come to Stockholm School of Economics in August. And what I think is important in Sweden, or at least at this institution, is the fact that we are free to speak. The way I speak, the way she speaks, basically in academia, North America, and right now or many other places, there's a lot of censorship and people fear. I have no fear. I think we need to really create those fearless cultures. Everybody is agreeing, but then they are very, very hard to find. So I think this is a very big asset here, in general in Sweden, that people are still quite free to talk. And this is something we or you definitely need to preserve.
So how confronting are, and Swedes are sometimes in some cultural research aspects I've seen, we're almost like Asians, who really want to avoid conflict. And I saw a Harvard study with Russia, Israel, and France being the most confrontative countries. And of course, that can affect our leadership also. Do we speak up, or do we avoid conflict, or how do we handle that? What also comes to mind, and just a reflection that I'd like your thoughts on, I spoke a bit about the inner development goals. And in West, when we talk about inner, people automatically think about individual, as inner would be simultaneous as individual. Whereas in Asia or in many other countries, when we talk about inner, people focus on the inner but collective. Compassion is not something that I have, it's something that we build. It's in the relationships in our culture. And this goes back to the first question. What is your view? Are we too much focusing on the individual and the leadership and forgetting the impact of the collective and the culture that we can have together? Or do we strike the right balance in the field of leadership, or what you see in Sweden now, at least?
from my end, because the academic publications within leadership, they are North America driven. So the top is North American, so that's the benchmark. It's very hard to come with collective thinking or have some Hindu philosophy behind the research and get that thinking accepted, which is why I thought it was important to say that if you think authenticity is important, then it's important for everybody, and that then would include that we also start listening to those Asian. Actually, our Western culture is in the minority in the world. The way we think we are a minority. Most people are collective thinking people, and those often even researchers, academics, they can't express their cultural values in the research because it's not accepted. So I think that's a big problem, definitely in research.
Thank you. Laurence, what?
I think that indeed very often when you think leadership, you think of one person. And then we do not tend to associate collective, co-constructed leadership as leadership. We see it as collective action. Yeah. But that can also be seen and understood as leadership. This change is driving phenomena. So when you say, are we too much focused on the individual when we think of leadership? Yeah, well, in the West, indeed, we may very much associate the word leadership with one individual, but it doesn't have to, as you know.
And I love the word post-heroic, like when we say, okay, there is something that we are doing together. And also, like, if I look at the cultures and companies that I really admire, they're quite post-heroic. They don't have one person or like one strong leader. They're saying, we're solving this together. We're doing this somehow. And I think this is really important questions also to address. How do we develop together? Because this is my biggest learning in the last 2 years, that the leadership journey is a shared journey. It's a journey that in which we embark as a group, and we help each other grow, and we help each other see when we don't live up to our own ideals or moral, or where we start. There is a lot of power games. There is a lot of things that distract us from the creating value that you are pointing to. And how can we help each other see that when we fall short? Any last recommendations for our listeners? If you would have one thing that you would like to inspire people to try out or do or reflect, what would it be? The closing words.
I would say dare more. I meet a lot of managers, a lot of people who think they have they think in terms of sustainability, they want to change things, and then they are caught into the business as usual, and daring and then trying to find the tools and the vocabulary to argue for what you believe in. I would say go for it. And maybe you can't find your word the first time, but you will the next time. So go for what you believe in, really. That's going to make a difference.
Thank you. Katja?
Yeah, I would also say the breaking off the silence, especially in Sweden, because I do know many foreigners. I've worked here before too, before this stretch, that many foreigners, managers and others, they find it frustrating that because things are not put on the table, it's very hard to understand what happens during Pika or in people's minds. So that's dare to put the uncomfortable stuff on the table and listen, like really, like listen to that. I think that's something. And also then avoid something I call willful ignorance. What I'm researching is the stuff we look the other way. We know something is wrong, but we don't want to dig more because it's uncomfortable for us. So we don't want to compromise our friendships or colleagues or our position. We look the other way. So fight this willful ignorance, this type of ignorance that can be avoided, because some types of ignorance cannot be avoided.
Thank you. So if I think about my last point, I built a leadership development company. We put 70,000 people through different programs. And my sense is that unfortunately people tend to want to develop what they're already good at. So if you're really good at critical thinking and complexity and the cognitive part, people usually go into that bit, and sometimes they get stuck there into just getting better and better in that. And this is why I think it's inspiring to see a variety from many different researchers and frameworks. I mean, with the Inner Development Goals framework, where you can see, okay, I came from the category of being. I used to do a lot of search in values and authenticity and meditation and all that. And then I realized that, oh my God, here are all these practices on collaborating. that other people has researched and have knowledge in that I'm much more challenged by. And where do we invest time is my question when we try to grow ourselves and in our culture. Do we invest time where it's easy and fun, or where we really can challenge ourselves and grow? And for me, just looking at the different categories in skills and asking where would I really need to grow is a very interesting question to take on.
I like what you say, this relational, it would be good next step just to go to work on the relations. Then.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we can agree there. In a Swedish way, at least all three of us win. Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your research and wisdom and reflections and being here with us. And now we will continue, and we will have Anna Månsson, head of the alumni at SSE, who will share some updates with us.
Hi, and welcome to this year's homecoming. My name is Anna Månsson, and I'm head of alumni engagement here at the Stockholm School of Economics. Thank you all for joining us today. You, our alumni, form a very important part of SSE. So I want to give a big thank you to all of you who contribute as speakers, mentors, corporate partners, donors, guest lecturers, board members, and the many other ways you contribute to the school, the students, and the alumni community. One of the ways of engaging with the school that's especially appreciated by the students is being a mentor to our students through the SSE mentorship program. We are so proud and thankful that so many of you have taken on our students as mentees, and we hope to see even more of you join the upcoming mentorship program later this spring. I'm also excited to share some updates with you. Among them is our increased outreach to alumni. We now have over 20,000 alumni, and more than 30% of you live and work outside of Sweden, all the way from Zimbabwe to Vietnam. And we are so happy to see so many of you participate in our events and engage from all over the world. For the past year, we've organized several webinars and hybrid events, and now we're finally starting to go back to physical events. We'd love to continue seeing you online for our alumni webinars, but also we look very much forward to welcome you to your reunions, to lectures, events at our international hubs, and last but not least, homecoming. Arranging homecoming online last year was something that many of you international alumni very much appreciated, so that is why we're doing it online again this year. We are, however, hoping to invite you to a homecoming dinner at Sveavägen 65 in the fall. Stay tuned for more information to come. There are a lot of alumni who've stepped up and gone above and beyond this last year, but there are two in particular that we would like to highlight. Åsa Risberg, who was awarded the 2021 Alumni of the Year Award, and Marina Dirks, who was awarded the 2021 Young Alumni of the Year Award. We recognize Åsa and Marina not only for their professional success, but also for their great support and involvement with SSE and in the community, and for them being shining examples and role models to many within the SSE network. We are grateful for Åsa's and Marina's ongoing support and proud that they are part of the SSE family. Later on in the program, you'll have the chance to hear more about the nomination process for the 2022 Alumni of the Year Award and the 2022 Young Alumni of the Year Award.
Thank you, Anna, for those reflections and input. One thing that I take away on a personal level from this hours together is that there can be too much of anything, and how focusing too much on authenticity, how that can stop ourselves and maybe even others from being authentic, and in the worst case even become narcissistic, and how the big why for developing our leadership. Why do we do this? Do we do it just to improve ourselves for the fun of it, to feel well? Do we do it to become better leaders in our organization? Or the bigger why, do we do this because it's needed globally? Because we influence each other much more than we think, we're interconnected. And by developing what is most needed globally, I can also make a small contribution to that in my culture and maybe even in the world. So one more thing that I'd like to say is just remind, it's an extraordinary community that we have at SSE with many extraordinary achievements. And right now in the chat, you will find the link to the Alumni of the Year Award and Young Alumni of the Year Award. And I know it's hard, but see if you would like to contribute with your voice and see who can be the person that you maybe think has the skills or the leadership or focusing on what is mostly important in the world, and give them a voice. So we have reached the end of our evening together. On my behalf, on the alumni and all the people here in the studio, thank you so much for joining us digitally. And I really, really hope we can meet together at Stockholm School of Economics for our gathering homecoming dinner, because nothing like the pandemic has really taught me to appreciate the one-on-ones, the real human connection, and I really hope we can experience it together at Stockholm School of Economics. Thank you for today.